Have you ever seen a highly trafficked area, like a college campus or something, where there are sidewalks everywhere that are meticulously planned and measured and arranged, and then there's this dirt trail, this dirt path that is just naturally formed nearby, bypassing the established flow of travel to create an organic shortcut. These are called desire paths. This concept grabbed my inspiration recently when revisiting the concept of trail hiking. I love trail hiking. It's been a huge part of my life. I truly feel at home out in the woods, and I really hope to be able to do some more work in the future maintaining, blazing, and beautifying nature trails. While reflecting on the concept of an established path, a trail, I kind of use the terms interchangeably, I've started to trace these back to their origins. How does a trail start? How does it form? How is it decided what path it will take? There's something about the organic form of it that fascinates me. These are artificial manifestations formed through sometimes artificial but primarily natural erosion. They're a very odd fusion of natural and man-made. This line of thought then triggered memories of when I was in my early 20s exploring the mountain behind my house, off-trail with my dog. We would pick an area to go hiking in, and at deliberate points in a known area, abandon the trail and start bushwhacking. And sure enough, time and time again, we would encounter pseudo-trails. Very clear, distinct pathways through the woods created by deer, even turkeys, which clearly demonstrates that this pathfinding phenomenon is absolutely not limited to humans by any means. In fact, you can find similar traits and patterns in non-sentient entities as well, like plants, or even in AI and video games and computer simulations, even non-living forces such as streams and rivers. This concept, the path, feels like a symbol that connects not just man and nature, but the sentient and the non-sentient, the living and the unliving. My first impulse with this concept was to create simulated AI life forms with their own pathfinding coding. I might still do this. It's on the back burner with about 10,000 other ideas now, but to be honest, it's well outside my current capabilities. I was envisioning a group of AI creatures with the decision-making capabilities of a Roomba, putting them on a topographical map, pointing them in the direction of a destination, and letting them take the path they choose, peppering the landscape with trees and boulders so they'll have things to avoid. And as they travel, I'd have them leave a very faint trail, like a pheromone trail that they would follow, in case another traveler manages to overlap their path and kinda form a cohesive, agreed-upon path. Again, this seemed way above my pay grade. I only have a very rudimentary understanding of coding. I started to think, well, I have all the tools I need for that right here, right? I mean, I can make a path, can't I? But how do I add a level of randomness instead of doing what we seem naturally compelled to do, to look ahead from a bird's eye perspective and optimize the path of least resistance intentionally, to peek ahead and cheat? How do I create these paths in the most immersive, real-world way possible? The answer was much simpler than I thought. First, I was tempted to take a topographical map, add random noise generation to simulate trees and debris, and just draw intuitive lines on it to represent paths, like a ballpoint pen. Like the ballpoint of the pen was the traveler and the ink was the journey. At that point, I was still stuck in this third-person Google Maps kind of perspective. Then it struck me. This would be so much better if it was first person. if I was actually exploring the world myself, if I didn't have the option of looking bird's eye for navigation to cheat. And I could do this easily in modded Minecraft. I set up a world that had realistic terrain generation, immersive lighting, and trees and plants that dynamically grow and change over time. I had a mapping program that tracked my footsteps periodically. I even contacted the map mod maker to see if they could give me a tutorial to customize it further, but they kind of flaked on me. So, unfortunately, I had to stop and take screenshots every 45 seconds or so, which was a big exercise in self-control to make sure I wasn't cheating and looking at the map ahead of myself to help reorient. I chose 2 points on the landscape: Clearview Shrine in the field at the edge of a swamp and a birch forest, and the Lone Peak Shrine in a boreal forest at the foot of a mountain. I constructed simple, tall, identifiable, well-lit shrines to help with orientation. And from there, I simply oriented myself in the general direction of the other shrine and started walking. And upon arrival, turned around and did it again, each time preserving the screenshots of my trail on the map. In the beginning, the terrain was entirely new to me. I would use general environmental markers as navigation tools: the mountain, the light of the shrines, the borders where the biomes met. But after a few dozen runs, I started to pick out specific familiar landmarks to aid in orientation: clusters of flax plants, downed birch trees, sinkholes, and small ponds. The more I became familiar with my surroundings, the more confident I became in my travel, to the point where, with minimal change to the surrounding environment, just occasionally breaking plants to simulate them being trampled, I found myself capable of doing this journey very intuitively, rarely even getting lost. What started as an exploration of a force of nature ended up kinda fusing with a very interesting concept that I'm starting to think is very similarly related: learning, familiarization. The paths that I was blazing started to remind me of, at first, of lightning, like two opposingly charged areas compelled to mass exchange electrons or something, with each path being a controlled electron stream or something. Then it started to remind me of synaptic activity. It felt like this project was visually mirroring my process of learning in a very clear form, which appeared eerily similar to neuroimaging of synaptic activity. The parallels to me are uncanny, and for me, the message underlying is very resonant. In the beginning, I made plenty of perceived errors. I was very clumsy and disoriented, but as I familiarized myself with this environment, I gained more experience, more familiarity. I developed habits and attachments, a method. I learned. And as those synaptic connections, those habits grew stronger, the path itself grew stronger as well. And the path intuitively began to optimize itself. You might notice this area here that I found very fascinating. In my conscious experience of this area, I remember getting to this point when heading south and asking myself, which side of that tree do I usually go on? The snowfall didn't help. And I ended up just abandoning habit and going with instinct without really thinking. And I naturally formed a desire path, an optimized route, a new branch from my established trail that diverted from habit and intuited a slightly more optimized route. Not due to deliberate intention of optimization, due to disorientation and a lack of memorable attachment. Only after mapping and rendering the trails did I start to see this bifurcated path forming. Though at times it was very tedious, this project was very cool to make. It taught me a lot about my expectations of myself when feeling lost and lacking confidence in new environments with new activities or skills. That even when performing a mindless task like walking through the woods between two general points, the compelling force of familiarity will make that area feel like home, given time and experience. It will naturally become easier and more comfortable. With practice, with repetition, with trying, you build comfort and familiarity, and that's growth, right? In my head, I picture this project, but with 10 shrines, 50, 100, and all the connections between them, walked and pathed by dozens of people, each with their own stories and experiences, each with their own unique imprints on the environment. That's a colossal undertaking that I currently lack the resources and technology for, but one that I would love to take on someday. I think the end result would be stunningly beautiful.